要是去日本的 K 那边，请他去讲 Smart City 的事情。那我就请他也顺便来这边。那所以下午我们在台北电脑峰会有一场在那。那我跟他讲说来这边分享多一点好，所以他其实会讲 presentation， 但是他把它团在在一起。所以除了今天下午会讲的一些 Smart City 相关的一些议题之外，他还会讲到一些他的材料。
Let's see if smart technology works today. It works here, but apparently it doesn't work up there. Hang on. Perfect. Excellent. Okay, thank you, sir. And I think that was a pretty good overall picture of what we're going to talk about today. And it's also my first time in Taiwan, and I'm super excited to be here because it seems to be a very nice country to be in, even though I've just experienced the Taipei so far. But and then I really need your full attention today, because what we've been trying to do here is combine two different presentations into one, given the fact that we want to know about smarter cities, because by 2050, half of us, maybe even 70% of us, will live in cities all over the world. We know they will be bigger. I'm afraid they won't be smarter. That's what we're going to talk about today. And also try to kind of focus it a bit on how could that be relevant for BenQ, because you're not urban planners, you're not architects, and you're probably not IBM or Microsoft delivering the big operating systems for the smarter cities of the future. But you're a product and a service provider, I guess. And you make many of these products that will coexist with the citizens in the homes, in the workplaces, and so on. So I think this is the way I'll try to focus it today. And also, I think we have to understand that we have enough products, we have enough technology, we have enough services. I think the big challenge is really, how do we put all this together in a meaningful way? And you guys living in Asia and looking at the Asian market, you know all about this, that we have enough. The question is how to combine it. So we could say, is this the vision we have for the smart city? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So is this the vision that we have for the smarter future? If you ask me, I'm not sure this will be the thing. To me, that is smart washing, like a marketing stunt, basically, living in these like futuristic cities. And I can't see myself really walk the dog in that city. Can you? But what about this? If this is the way we design cities in the future, I can check this out, but is this the vision we have for it? I mean, a smart city in the future is more than bricks and bridges and buildings, right? It's not SimCity, it's not Lego, it's a place for real people. So have a look at this. Perfect dream world, everything would be like modular, plug and play, and we could build a city, a perfect city. So the thing is here, what's missing there in this vision, in this way of designing a city? You know that? It's users, it's the end user, the human factor is missing. Because that is top-down urban planning, seen from a control room. How can we make the city energy efficient? How can we make public transportation and infrastructure perfect? But still, it's people who live and work in the cities. I mean, that's what we should care about. And that's also, I guess, where BenQ's products in the future will have to fit in, right? In schools, workplaces, living rooms, etc. I just wanted to give you a quick introduction to Designit, who we are. We're a strategic design firm, 300 people in a lot of different offices around the world. And we're a bunch of mixed people. So of course we have designers, but we have a lot of strategists, business people, and technologists as well. And all these people work together as one, basically, in combined teams. And I think you'll see many of my colleagues, they're not just like have one skill, they have typically more skills. So it could be like a guy from business school is damn good at programming in Arduino, for example. To me, this is like the perfect colleague because he's a small team in himself. And this is actually very important to understand the new way of how to design things. So we have 3 focus areas. The one is smarter living, the second one is smarter health, and the third one is smarter cities. And this is some of our clients, and for some strange reason, even though they're spread across sectors, they're very different, big ones, small ones, they all have the same challenge basically. And that is, 10 years ago, they would come to us and ask, okay, sure, so we're going to design this thing, how should it look, right? You know what they ask us today? It's, what are we going to do tomorrow? That's the big question. Not how things look, but what makes sense to put on the market, because it's a big investment, right? And all of them seem to understand that the design process is most of all about asking why. Why do we put this new product, this new service on the market? Why is it better than the one we have? And why is it competitive? Of course they want to have answered as well. What would it be? How should it look? For whom are we designing it? But the biggest question is the why. We call it actually, design sometimes becomes a whyology. You keep asking why. Right? Sometimes it drives our clients crazy and they say, hey, we're not paying you guys to ask us why all the time. We want some answers, like, but that is very important. Every time you dive into a new project, you have to ask yourself, why am I going to do this? What benefit will it bring? So the process that we apply, I guess it's simple and it's the same all over the world. Like boiling an egg, you need like boiling water and an egg, right? People do it like a bit differently, but it's the same basically. So we spent quite some time on understanding the problem. If we get a brief, we challenge it. We try to get some insights, market insights, user insights that can inform the design process in a better way. Does that make sense to you? So designing a new camera or a smart application for a home, we don't just like say, okay, let's design something, right? We want to understand the user needs and also the user needs that we don't know yet, right? But based on that, we do like classic, brainstorm, concept development, ideation, what have you. A bunch of people, 3 people, 5 people, 10 people going together, and based on the insight, we do the ideation. And then, of course, what you want to end up with is something solid, something tangible, and where we kind of end up is making prototypes, or looks like models, or works like models, meaning that we can do a bit of programming, rapid prototyping, etc., so that we make sure that when handing it over to a company or a public institution, they can make and implement the solution. But we don't do like, final programming. So here is a quick video about us, 90 seconds, that will show you how we work with design and also trying to maybe, focus on the most important thing of all, not the product, but the user experience, right? So have a look at this.
We are Designit. It can be everything. It is inside every product. It is behind every service. It comes after each tap. It lives in every showroom. The experience. Designit is a strategic design firm. We look for the junction between human desire, technology, and business. At Designit, we explore and we challenge. It can be an insulin pen changing diabetes treatment. It can be the time-saving self-service of mobile banking. It can be late-night shopping, branding a nation, logging in, checking out, going home, or controlling 40 industrial pumps from your phone. From our 15 offices around the world, we design products and services of the future. We believe that every touchpoint between a business and its customers is an opportunity. At Designit, we will go beyond the conventional design process and bridge the gap between strategy and reality. Through strategic design firm.
So many of our clients, right, the different logos you just saw, you know what they have in common? They tell us that, running a company is easy. Changing it, that's kind of different, right? So running a company nowadays, they say, it's like driving a car with a foggy windscreen. You can't see a thing. And what happens when you're driving a car and you can't really see where you're going? You drive in a very safe way, right? You drive in the middle of the road. You don't do the explorative, like swings and go out in the bush and see what you find there. Right? This is typically where innovation is, actually. So you stay there safe in the middle of the road, make yourself a small peephole, and drive, right? One client told me once, he said, yeah, you might be right, we lost a bit, destination and direction, but we are shooting ahead at a damn good speed, he said. Yes, you're right, but where are you going? If you don't know where you're going, you can go anywhere, and everything will be okay. At other times, this is what happens, right? You know this feeling? You get the project brief, right, with a lot of different things that this, new device, a new service needs to do. So it's like left, right. Market research says, IT says, customer service thinks that we should. This can be very confusing, right? And what we learned is that if you put user needs first, it's very safe, like a true north. It's a safe orientation mark to go after all over the world, basically. Just follow the user needs. It's basic Google philosophy, almost. And we think that works pretty well. It's simple, and it's even strategic for some strange reason. And sometimes the crazy thing is that design agencies becoming increasingly like consultants, right? So we deliver much of this insight actually. And the question is not like, you can have all the insights in the world, but if you make the wrong decisions, you're in deep shit anyway, right? So, and sometimes we deliver, McKinsey delivers, and so on, these strange pieces of information that you don't know what to do with, right? So changing this from too much information into relevant wisdom, I think that's really the big trick. We can all collect information, that's easy to do. Do you know this guy? He's not my guru, but I think he's an interesting guy. It's 73. So Martin Cooper just invented the phone, the mobile phone, the portable phone. It's a big one. No smartphone, no screen, lots of buttons and so on, and you could talk 8 minutes and you'd have to charge 8 hours or something. Right? So, but I guess the fun thing here is that it kind of changed the way we communicate, collaborate. It changed the way we think of cities and communities, if you ask me. It's a different concept of connectivity somehow. And it also seemed that somehow it went through, if this was a smart city, from being a dumb one to a truly smart one, right? It's the same evolution somehow, smartphone, smart city. We're just waiting still for the smart city to happen. The thing is here, we also shifted away from, thinking that the competitive factor is form, shape, color, and all this stuff. It doesn't matter anymore. Now it's a standard. The smartphone, the form factor is basically given, and what we focus on now is what you can do with it. The smart things happening on the UI, the UX, etc. Does that make sense to you guys? It's a big shift actually. And I think cities also need to go through the same thing and agree on some indicators, some standards, so that we can, really understand and measure when a smart city is really smart, because other than that, it's just a marketing concept. So in Italy, right, they have the Pope, the head of the Catholic Church. So in 2005, when they got Pope Francis, this was what the inauguration looked like in Rome, right? What have we done here? One stupid jerk with a mobile phone with a camera, right? So if you fast forward 8 years, this is what it looked like. Technology in the hands of everyone, right? Kids, grandpas, my mother, my wife, everybody has that, right? So why is that relevant? It's relevant because, if everybody comes with technology in their hands, empowering, the end user, this will eventually change a lot of things. Like, for example, the relation between a doctor and a patient in a hospital. Maybe some of your products will end up there, like, the patient journal or whatever you're going to develop in the future. And all of a sudden, health became a collaborative thing. So the patient, very clever, she went to Google and checked out a lot about her condition. she's going to have to collaborate with the doctor about her health, right? Somebody has to shape that piece of technology to make the conversation happen, right? Spoke to a doctor once. You know what they call these patients that have been Googling too much? It's a patient from hell. Because it's a big pain in the butt, right? Because they know too much, right? They start asking questions. And then I think the reason also for being here is that life is pretty complicated. I think you would agree, right? The more smarter things we get, you know, the more complicated everything gets somehow, right? And the more connected we get, the more confused it gets. Even I think Apple is doing a great job with, you know, the whole concept of continuity, cloud, and all this makes a lot of sense. But still, I get tangled up in it. Right? Don't you agree? That all these, like, you know, cloud is not the answer to everything. Life is still very complicated. And sometimes even the solutions that we bring to the market just are new problems, right? One solution that creates 5 new problems. Huh? Like access control in a parking lot. Who designed that goddamn system that hits you on the head if you do something wrong? That doesn't make sense to me. It's not good design if you ask me. Or who designed the security check in the airport, right? I would argue from where I sit that design could help. You know, we could create a better user experience, a better experience for the staff. We could increase productivity, etc., etc. Right? That would be easily done. But you know, a team of experts sat down with a project specification that said safe, safe, and safe. These are the 3 top priorities. And I would agree that safety is important in a safety system, right? But I would say safety, productivity, and a great user experience, fun. I think this can be combined in the future, if you ask me. So, same thing happens all about. I mean, some ATMs, some cash machines are pretty hard to operate, right? Just getting, you know, log in on Wi-Fi, get technology to work, complicated stuff. I think there's a massive market out there for simple, user-friendly solutions. And this one, you guys know this, right? Yeah, the perfect packaging. A team of packaging experts, you know, we're gonna make the perfect, you know, packaging now. You know what they focus on? It's like, you know, we're a company, we have products, we need packaging. We gotta pack things in, right? That's very important to us. You know what the end user focuses on? Packing things out, the unboxing experience, right? And very often we have this like, you know, we have to shift the mental model when we develop products, right? It's the wrong way. Packaging, one of the main purposes, I mean, you can open it, right? It should be obvious. I think Amazon actually did a quite good job on this, saying, wow, many of our users, they struggle with this. It's a huge pain point. Why don't we turn it into like, you know, a great service experience? So they created this frustration-free packaging, and actually it works quite nicely. And they started out with, I think, 18 products, really the horrible ones, the Fisher Price, you know, the pirate ship that you cannot open, and all the wire straps and all this. And today, after 3 years, it's more than 200,000 products. It became part of their brand, this frustration-free packaging. So, before we shift a bit back to smarter cities, so be aware, you know, if you're working in like a tech company like this, very often what you deliver is this, but you think you're delivering that, right? Users, they don't like that complicated stuff. Certainly just showed that example of the thermostat, right? So 100 buttons, is that good or bad? I think it's bad if you ask me. I want 1 button, right? And the rest should be smart. So, but very often there's like it's a big disappointment when you make market surveys, for example, and the user feedback is, no, like say BenQ makes too many complicated products. It's not good for our productivity, you know. Oh really? We put a lot of effort into making this like a real good thing. But very often our clients are surprised about this. So now we fly back to the small city of Copenhagen, that and Denmark, the small country that certainly just like described for you guys. And it is true that we're like 1/4 of the Taiwanese population. So basically, Copenhagen, the city I live in, it's basically like very small ship. It's a pilot project, so we can do everything in a very short period of time. If you want to do the same thing in Tokyo or Taipei, it gets a bit complicated, right? So, but I'll try to give you some insights in our perception of the smart city. Taking the starting point in '53, an artist painted this wonderful poster and saying, I want this city to be wonderful. It should be charming, open, inclusive, happy city somehow, right? I think that's a good vision, a good starting point for a smart city. So, many of the projects that we do, and other of the design agencies in Denmark, it's not designing candle holders and chairs anymore. This is like if you ask me, the 1.0. The 2.0 is trying to design society. So we spend quite some time on designing public self-service systems, right? Because the government wants us to do all the work. It's efficient, right? And they want us to be happy with it. They need designers to craft that user experience, because if only like an IT services company makes it, it's gonna be a hell of a system. So we spent quite some time on not developing, but designing these systems. Self-ticketing is another big area for design. Home automation. And also this one, I think it's kind of cute. It's the school where my kids go to. And so when they go to after school care, they check out when they go home from that. They do that on a simple, I think that's a Taiwanese pad, actually. So somebody developed like a checkout system that says, so my kid, when he goes home, he wants to play with Salah down here, So I'm checking out now. I'm going with Salah home, and mom and dad send a text to them so they know where to pick me up. That's a super smart service, right? I mean, I think very often it's not like big complicated solutions that deliver the everyday value. And even also like a topic for designers is, how do you, when old people move from their last home into the nursing home, how do you make sure that this whole transition is a good one? A lot of people die or get sick after they move because they lost their soul somehow. So design, where I come from, is also used to design processes and transitions for citizens. So that's actually, you don't end up with a beautiful product, but you end up with happy people and a better statistic for nursing home. Then another thing that I think is not unique, but quite characteristic about many of the Danish solutions is that they solve more problems. Not only one, but more. So this looks like a skate park, right? Which it is, 99% of the time. But due to climate change and stuff, we have heavy rainfalls, flooding the houses and so on. So this is a combined skate park and a water basin at the size of 10 swimming pools. So when we have like once, twice a year, serious rainfall, it's collected in this basin. I think it's a smart solution, actually, and a good story, right? It becomes part of the city branding. And then Denmark, you can't talk about Denmark without talking about bikes. And I know Phoebe told me that actually some of the future bike share systems, I have a picture of that I can show you later on. The next generation bike share systems in Denmark is developed with Taiwanese technology, actually. So, but let's have a look at this piece of infrastructure, which is a big part of our smart city. So we go on bikes all year round, in all cities, right? You go to IKEA, you buy a big sofa. I bet you somebody's trying to transport that home on a bike. It's like, okay, it's a bit of an exaggeration, but a chair at least. So we're crazy with bikes, and actually, it's not only for our spare time. We use it for. It's a big part of the infrastructure. So, and these are the next gen smart bikes. I think some Taiwanese company was involved in doing the touchpad that's on the handlebars, right? Yeah, it's actually quite a nice one. And I think we learned the hard way in Denmark that 20 years ago when we designed the first public bike share system, we were 20 years ahead of everyone. And then we just like fell asleep at the switch, Suddenly we woke up, the world was full of bike share systems with a digital extension, right? With a touchpad, GPS systems, payment models, what have you, right? Data collection. So we woke up and now we're catching up, making these ones that are these are electric bikes, and with a smart device on it, and that suddenly changes the bike from a bike to a mobility service, right? And then the capital of Denmark, Copenhagen, runs like a whole portfolio of pilot projects. One of them being transforming the bike lane system into a better and a smarter one. So what they've been doing is actually taking many of these, the main routes, and try to, make them smarter, because they want to make bicycling an attractive alternative to taking the car or even public transportation. So what they did is actually making some new bike routes, combining them with old ones, painting them or designing them in this very characteristic orange color, making actually, like a smart bike highway. It has 2 lanes, one that is fast and one that's like comfort, convenient. And it cuts down, the travel time to work significantly. So they straightened out many of the lines. They made a so-called green wave, meaning that cars and buses will yield also to safety. So if you go by 20 kilometers per hour, it's just a smooth ride and you never stop, at a red crossing. And right now what is happening, and this is where it becomes interesting, I think also for this conversation, is that not only are we, refitting the old, analog infrastructure, we're also developing a lot of new services on it, like having radar systems and cameras along this route to have some smart, traffic solution that can see, what's the load, what's the traffic on the bike lanes, if there's roadworks, etc. And even they're working on some smart system that can, combine the weather forecast and see, oh, so tomorrow it will be a rainy day. More people, we know that because of statistics, will jump off the bike, get into a bus. So I think this is really, where this whole product service ecosystem becomes interesting, also for a company like yours. So does that make sense to you? So it's a safe, convenient, and fast way of traveling, and sustainable. And then also some super nice pieces of what I would call low tech. For example, these footrests, right? So when you don't need to get off your bike because the turnaround time increases if everybody has to get off the bike stand and get back. So just having that footrest makes you kind of, kiss and ride. If you hit red, you easily, get out of the, your starting position again. And I think many of these solutions, it's really at street level, but they deliver big, big value to users. All right, so actually this is, now we just this is the last half of the presentation. So do you have any questions so far? Because I want to go a bit back to discuss all this in a strategic perspective. So you got it all? That's great. Otherwise you can just interrupt and ask some questions. But so shifting back and looking at the whole thing in a business perspective again, I think is also pretty interesting. Basically, what we're after, I guess, is logging into the digital economy. And I think also many companies learned that it's not a question of having more and more products, right? I just Googled BenQ, and this is what it looks like. I took one of the nice shots, and this is what we call a product zoom, right? Many different products. I think some of them link and connect in a smart way, I guess. And I guess others don't. But looking at all this, and also see a big company like Samsung, for example, struggling with understanding what is it that users want in their homes, right? So the concept of a smart TV. The moment I got that one, the first thing I wanted was a wise TV, right? Because smart is not always very smart. And I'm sorry, it's the marketing thing again. And it takes a lot of time to figure out what users really want. You can't just market your way out of it. And I think also the understanding of, a car's not a car, a phone is not a phone, a TV is not a TV, design is not design anymore. We have to shift our mindset away from thinking of design as something that is beautification. Design is business, basically. And many of our customers and all the big successful companies around the world are shifting. BMW, for example, they realize that being a car maker is not enough because young people, they don't give a shit about cars. It's a hassle. You have to pay for the insurance, for the parking, for everything. So they're shifting from being car maker to mobility service provider, right? And logging into this whole sharing economy. I think we all have to learn from this. And also bringing the different channels and touch points together in a meaningful way. Say one day you'll start making wearables, right? So what happens on the small screen, the small touch, needs to be the same thing happening kind of in the living room, in the control room, wherever, right? So finding all this together is really the big challenge, not creating more stuff. I think Jeff Bezos, the Amazon guy, right? I think he put it in a very, in a great way. He was talking to the publishing industry, and they were whinging, saying, "Yeah, we're gonna die. We're gonna go out of business. Nobody will buy CDs or newspapers or anything anymore." I said, "Well, guys, you're not gonna die. Your products are not gonna die. They will just turn digital." That's kind of a different mindset. If you think you're dying, you are gonna die. I'm pretty sure. So I think that was a good way of putting it. Then sometimes, if we really want to get our, clients off the chair, because they say, "No, it's not gonna happen. That will not happen." Just like, Kodak said, mobile photography, we don't believe in this. It's not gonna happen, right? So when we go to meetings with, banks and stuff, sometimes we do these, photo matches like this, take a picture of an iPad and say, "Oh, have you guys heard? Apple just decided to go into consumer banking." They'll spit out their coffee and say, "What?" Because Apple has the cash, the user experience, the technological capability to bring all this together in probably would be the world's greatest bank, right? Or even like this, for example. In June, Tesla, Tesla, right, gave away all its patents, 120 patents, saying to everyone, "You can use them. We just want to promote, e-mobility, basically." And then it was rumored also that Apple wanted to buy Tesla, right? What would happen? I mean, even Volkswagen and these guys, Toyota and Hyundai, they have to listen up, because that would, if it would happen, basically create a whole new product category, right? And potentially disrupt the old ones, like an iPad on wheels. I mean, what a monster to compete against, right? So if that would happen, sometimes you gotta we say put the I in front of it. Even though I hate mentioning Apple all the time, but they do so many things right. If you put an I in front of your service, what would that look like, right? Or asking what would Google do? I'm going to make this a short one, because that's actually a small presentation in itself, but the shift from making cars to understanding that what happens in the car, that's the future. Not going from A to B, but the time we spend inside the cars, right? So a lot of companies focus on making these wonderful self-driving cars, right? What I would focus on is really what's going to happen in there. One thing I'm sure of, we're not going to just sit and be driven, right? This will not happen. We want to do things in the car. The Tesla, with that big touchscreen and so on, it's great, but I don't think it's the future. It's maybe already the past. So what we got to figure out is really, what are we going to do in the cars, right, in the future? So this is Regus, that office location rental service provider, figuring out what about our spaces, being in the car in the future. We can deliver this as a service. And the interesting thing is that it's Regus, it's not the car makers. They only think about the car, right? Like the hammer, everything looks like a nail. So car makers want to make cars, but I would really be interested in what's going to happen in here in the future. Because if they don't move in there, Google will, and the car will just be like an empty shell for some kind of digital service, right? Yeah, that's a bit of textbook stuff here, but I think you should know anyway. So, okay. Technology can do everything, right? I think we agree, almost everything. Corporate innovation somehow is slow and not very responsive. Sometimes big corporations say, we don't think the market is ready for this. Users don't want this. That's what Nokia said, actually. But consumer expectations are actually pretty uptight. They want some meaningful stuff. Then, smart and techy is okay. And what it basically creates is a huge future market for those companies who understand this. Massive potential, right? And we know that the whole shift from way back from web, feature phones, social, mobile, analytics, cloud, artificial intelligence, robotics, this will change the market. So I would really look after this one, and I would put up, set the bar a bit higher. So I also brought some cases for you. I don't know if you can stay awake for this. It's like a 2-in-1 presentation, but I'm just going to hit you and you can say if it's too much, okay? So one of the companies that CERN talked about, the clean tech companies making these circulation pumps and heating systems for building, that's a big business. It's invisible, but it's a big, big business. So for one of these guys, we, like a classic product maker, we help them continue their product range digitally, so to say. Because pumps today are basically small computers, right? They work together in systems. So they realized that with this old device, setting up the pump was very time consuming, configuring, getting it started and so on. I typically put it this way, 40 clicks and you could set up one pump. It takes a lot of time, right? And one thing I want you to remember is, we're getting back to this. Remember this thumb, okay? This big finger, okay? Typically when we do solutions like this, the first thing we do is get away from our desk, get out of the office, and see what real users do. So we made global studies, like worked as ethnographers. That's an ethnographer, a human factor specialist, interested in what people say, what they do, and when they lie, when they say, what they do. So we went with all these like service guys in the truck and went out to see some real installations in China, in the US, and in Europe. Gives us a good understanding of, the user need, And then you come back with a lot of insights, very confusing. Very often it's like, tons of different insights, but once you start like collecting them, analyzing them, and doing what we call the synthesis, bringing it all together, somehow they all say the same line. So the question here is not like collecting lots of insights, but what you do with them, how you analyze them, basically. Because you can have all the insights, and like I said before, you can make wrong decisions, which is kind of sad, because you did all the right things. So based on all these like user needs, we started prototyping, designing, developing concepts. And what we did quite early on was taking these guys with a big thumb, inviting them with us into the design studio. Because very often, they know where the problem is. They're smarter than us. They know where the stone in the shoe is, right? So we used them for co-developing the UI on this like very small device, because we wanted to shift from that old clunky one to a smartphone. That's what they all ask for. In my private life, I have this like excellent device that's so easy to use. Why can't I just have the same on my job, right? Can I bring my own device, basically? So they helped us understand how this interface should look like, because as they said, remember the size of my thumb. Sometimes there's oil or grease on it or a glove, and I have to do like this, and then look at what happens up there. So I have like certain needs in this tool. But it ends up being like what looks like a normal app, mobile application, but we know it's based on user needs. And that's why it became very popular. All the service technicians, they didn't say, no, we don't like that, we want the old one. They said, we like it because we co-developed it, right? So we had a lot of ambassadors for it. And then typically what we do in these type of projects is that we create documentation like guidelines and toolbox, so that Grundfos in this case can learn how to do projects of this kind themselves. So yeah, eventually we're going to lose the client because we teach them how to design, but that's the way it works, basically. And I guess also you in your organization, when you work on tech projects, design projects, you want to learn as an organization, right? You want to get better and master some of these skills. So shifting from a very industrial type of project, this would be a more retail-oriented one. Together with Audi, we created the Future Car Showroom, which was dealing with the problem of having hundreds of cars in the showroom, always the wrong cars, right? So when you go in and you buy a car, you see all these 100 cars and, I want the green convertible one. Why is it not there, right? And so Audi wanted to have a different take on this and wanted to turn the car showroom into a small compact space suited for inner city on the high streets, and then replaced the test drive almost with a rich digital user experience. And basically what we spent a lot of time on was not creating the showroom, that was the job of an architect, but figuring out what goes on the screens. I mean, what happens in there? What is the user experience, the service experience, and so on. We wanted people to play with the brand, to touch the brand, and really get at eye level with our movie. We also wanted to create a better link between the dealership and home in the sofa, in the living room, because you don't make big decisions there, right? The sales rep, he's like, waiting and wants to sell your car, and so are you ready to make a decision? And he's very polite, but you don't feel like making that decision, do you? So you want to go home, discuss it with your husband or your wife, your kids maybe, and that's where you make the decisions. Also with, through technology, trying to create that, link. So when you start configuring your car here, you can configure at home as well. And of course, configuration, that's the big thing in the automotive industry, build your own dream car. Another thing that was super important was trying to link the digital experience with the real experience, right? So it's almost like, be able to smell the leather or smell the new car because the digital experience is so rich. And that is kind of hard to achieve. So, but now just like lean back and relax, have a look at this. It shows a bit about what the showroom is. The only thing we did was working on the technology, on the Kinect things and the mood sensors and all this stuff, and the customer, the service experience. There was this big team of lots of suppliers doing the architectural part, doing sounds and acoustics, etc. We just did user experience design and defined the concept, so to say. Bringing everything together in one unified product service experience, that was actually the big part of the work. All right, then in due respect of time, I think we're gonna skip ahead a bit, and we can get back to these things about the unified product service experience and how different brands work with trying to bring everything together. And I think this one, so you also know this one, right? That I think some time ago, the Danish Business Authority made a survey of like 2,000 different businesses, asking them, so in what way do you apply design in your company? And that was kind of interesting because it's pretty well documented that the more you use design, if you use it in the right way, the more competitive, the better bottom line, etc., etc. I think that is, everybody understands that there is a relation. The thing here was that Danish companies said that 36% didn't use design at all, not in a systematic way. Not that they didn't care, they just didn't believe in the return on investment. 12%, yeah, that's it. 12% used it as, just styling basically. So, shit, we made an ugly product. Call the designers, we need some, better color and some better styling, like last minute, just before, the deadline. And then 29% use design as a process, meaning an integral part of the decision-making process. And design is present at many levels in the organization. And the upper level, that's 16%, using design as a strategy, as a vision, meaning that design is present at any level of the organization in any kind of decision making. So that's 45% of Danish companies use design either at this or at that level, meaning in a process way or in a strategic way. I think that's kind of interesting. numbers. So, the last bits of the presentation is actually some tips and tricks that I would like you guys to take with you back to the next meeting and try to do just one thing different than what you did yesterday, right? Start a new conversation. And so first of all, shift from product focus to people focus. It sounds so easy, but it's a big thing because our heads are full of products, right? Because we are product makers or systems. This guy, he's the guy who saved the Scandinavian airline industry back in the 80s when it was almost collapsing. And besides having, I think, a super cool haircut, he said some very cool things. He said that he spoke to the thousands of employees in the Scandinavian airline systems and said, listen guys, we have to turn this around. We need to do something different. It's a great company, but we're almost kidding ourselves. I think what needs to be done is that we got to shift. So he said, we're so good at flying planes, now let's get good at flying people. That's a big shift, right, isn't it? And he said another thing. So let's not make one thing in our chain of services perfect 100%. Let's take 100 things and make them 1% better because we want to connect them, right? Does that make sense to you guys? So not like make something super perfect and leave other things untouched, but connect them all. Then just like the repetition of this thing about like, users are not you, so don't design for yourself. And shift from analyzing, project specifications all the time to visualizing user expectations. That's very often a much better, project brief. Think of the user experience. It's everything in a BenQ product or a service. It's the way it looks, the way it works, how it sounds when you touch it, the presence on all screens, the same kind of UI. That is just like in Audi. It's everything that creates the experience. And yeah, users are very different, so ask them, don't just design for yourself. And whenever you can, address more senses. It's not only about looking at things, it's touching them, tasting them, listening to them. That is also what the Audi City is about, and I think that's what really creates, the memorable user experience. So the sound in an electronic device, if it's a or if it's a, makes a big difference. The Roomba, right? The automatic vacuum cleaner, right? I think they did great. It's old by now, but great on the sound design actually. And then, of course, innovation is not happening in the lab. Get out of the lab, get into the living rooms. You'll find a lot of inspiration. That's a typical way for us to work. I don't know if you guys do that often, but it's I think it's super important. So before we touch down, I have a small video for you. And this is about the fact that the bigger companies get, the longer time it takes to make innovation. So here's some dudes from Holland that said, we don't want to do these like 24-month like long-term projects. What if we just had like 24 hours? What would happen? So have a look at it. I think it's really great because it should, if big corporations could innovate like small startups, that would really change your life. Have a look at it. I think it's quite fascinating.
Studio, we made a little box where we write down the small and big things that we think are a problem. Whenever we have some white space between projects, we grab one and give ourselves 24 hours to build a working prototype. We call this 24-hour product. And for the next 24 hours, we'll tackle this problem.
It's a big problem where we come from. So you save time going on a bike and you can't find it, you waste your time. The main purpose is not to make fun of people like Alain, but imagine the Taipei municipality wanted to deliver this service, right? They would address like a small startup and they could make it pretty fast. And I think you could develop maybe a new product category out of this. It's a small, smart product that fits into the bigger picture, I think. And it solves a problem. That's the main thing, right? So, we touched on it already, but of course it's not the car. It's about all the services you can put into that car, right? And that's the thing by any product. Right now, the smartphone seems to have taken, being the preferred platform, not the camera, not the PDA, but the smartphone, right? One that battles somehow. What's going to happen with cars? I believe in these like product service ecosystems. This is really what we need to create. And then, of course, sad story, but understanding that design is strategy. Nokia learned the hard way. They put it, know your past, create the future. But they did all the right things, but for some strange reason, things went wrong. Right? I think there's a lot of learning, a lot of takeaways from this. It's not about the thousands of handsets in different colors. I said that already, I know, but I just want to emphasize it's so important. And then the last piece of good advice would be for any organization that design belongs in the boardroom. Definitely, it belongs also at even on the factory floor. If you take a company like IKEA, the awareness of design is like bottom up, but it's also top down. And what we believe, both in companies but also in municipalities, that's basically the control room of the city, right? That some of these empty chairs we need to fill in with this guy, like a chief design officer. Maybe, even a minister or mayor of user experience. I think we really need that because the world is getting, less and less, simple, less usable if we don't take care of it. So that was actually the presentation. You guys stayed awake, and I'm super happy about that. So that was it. Thanks a lot.
大家有没有问题？大家都可以跟我们 Mikkel 询问。
You just said you might have thousands of insights, but the most difficult is to find the right decision, to make the right decision. Have you any method to do this right decision, or because I think you didn't mention that, maybe that's your secret.
Now, if you could tell me, I would be really happy. It's a good question. I'll try to answer it. What we've found to be true, and work in most cases, is that you have to blend your teams, meaning that design agency, consultancy, whatever it is, client, end users, staff, suppliers, what have you. You need to bring everybody to the table somehow. And I think that gives you the amount of insights you need, but also the discussion and the conversation that is needed to kind of filtrate all these insights, right? And that is basically a culture of challenging opinions, and also saying, if your boss, for example, says, I know what our customers want because that's what they wanted yesterday, I know they will need it tomorrow, you have to challenge this. sometimes, you know, it's even the junior guy who needs to do this. It's the only way to make safe that you kind of, you know, shake it up a bit. Because what we used to do 20 years ago, a group of, you know, designers getting together and, you know, making perfect design solution, it's groupthink, you know. So we just like, oh yeah, we agree, and yeah, you're right. And, you know, it's not the way of, the world is too complex today to work like this. That answered some of it, not all, but it's super important. I mean, because Nokia did so many things right. They used design, they used like, you know, anthropologists, and they were strategic, but you know, it's, I think they needed someone to, up in Finland, you know, really shaking them a bit.
大家还有没有问题 ？More questions?
Just shoot. I'm happy to answer all your questions. There is no such thing as stupid questions. Okay? All questions are good.
Yeah. Do you think what is your thinking about the product, the solutions and services?
Yeah, that is a good that is a good one. I think most of all that any product needs to be, you know, log into that digital economy somehow. That's for sure. And I think also, even though that cloud is not a need, it's just a solution to many things we can do. But I think we have to somehow link products and services, you know, maybe through a cloud or whatever, and all companies need to think of how they can create their own product service ecosystem somehow. And also be realistic about it, because start to compete with say IBM and all the thinking, you know, in the smarter cities, the operating systems for it, that's not realistic for many companies. So we have to think in smaller ecosystems that just like if you go to Kickstarter, you know that platform, right, with the crowdfunding. I think a lot of like young talented people really start to understand this whole thing about like product and service and how that relates. Many good examples of this, and like gaining, you know, with the product, service riding on the back of it, you can have like 1 million users suddenly, right? And then it's a valuable startup. But it's complicated. It is because of back-end systems and operating systems. You know, it's not always very easy. Some of our clients we had, like, that was actually one of these, like, you know, clean tech companies. We looked at these, like, they have 60,000 stock keeping units, right? 1,000 of them has a display on it, meaning that there's some kind of UI. And in a survey we made, we counted 47 different alarm icons, right? 47 different ways of, you know, giving an error message and so on. And this is that is not a product service thing that works, if you ask me. So very often it's to bring it together. It's a big cleanup in the system, like, you know, different platforms and operating systems. That's what the telcos are doing right now, like on a huge scale, going to that one-screen experience. Maybe not a good answer, but I'm trying. But it's a big question. I think we really need to think of this, because products cannot stand alone in the future.
Could you give us some direction for BenQ's products and what you suggest the services of BenQ?
I think that would take like a close look at BenQ's business areas and portfolios, and finding the strongholds, and also finding the opportunity spaces somehow, if we can take optical technology or camera products and link it with other things. And many companies look at Apple and see if they can do something similar. That's what HP and a lot of other companies are doing. But I think maybe there's another road also, like rethinking it and trying to, so what could we specifically and in a very unique way offer that would be, you know, a BenQ thing. But looking at the products, it's very simple. If you Google it, you can do that with any company. You can see if it's a company that is driven by one vision, like it's one brand, or it's many brands all over the place. And I think judging from the industrial design, the product design, it looks somehow pretty coherent. It seems that you have some strategic direction as per what a BenQ product identity should be. And then the big hidden factor is, of course, like linking all these things. And probably you don't want to do that with your own operating system, but going either Android or what have you, and then like focus on the service you can deliver on top of that. But I don't know much about, how far you are in terms of delivering or developing product service ecosystems. I always advise companies to make baby steps and have a small success, learn from it, and then take some bigger steps. I've seen many companies wanting to do the big thing in one step, stepping from even mechanical companies saying, now we got a screen on our devices, now we're going to do this big. And but it always comes back to the simple user needs. It solves the problem. Yes, please.
As we know that Denmark is a very friendly country, so for your Type A experience till now, what is the most friendly experience you had, and what is the most unfriendly experience you had?
The latter I didn't have. Actually, coming here is like one, big friendly experience, if you ask me. You guys, you laugh at things, so do I. I think it's important to have some fun. I just came from Japan, which has a lot of great things to say about Japan, but when it comes to the business culture, it's very different, right? So engaging you guys, having a conversation seems to be much more like we just do back home. And also you seem to be very open in terms of like sharing and like wanting to exchange experience. I think we can learn something from the way you do things as well, because our economy, it's pretty flat, I should say, and it will be for the next many years. I think we could learn a bit of that tiger blood and like making things happen fast. So, but it's been fun so far being here.
Yeah, I think Taiwan is very friendly, but what I try to ask is about the infrastructure, or is there any transportation experience you had, or?
Not yet. Just, the hotel seen from an inside seems to work. You guys, I know Danish hotels as well. It's not the biggest service experience. If you want one, you really pay for it. It seems to be like some kind of understanding of how to deliver a service, right? Be proud of it as well. We discussed that yesterday. I think back home, Denmark, self-service society, you get out of the car, the cab, and the cab driver, he would tell you, you got luggage in the trunk? Okay, pick it up. Can you please open? Oh yeah, right. Open. Remember to shut it, okay? That's not a service experience. I think we could learn a bit from you guys in terms of the way you interact and maybe even respect each other in a different way. Same thing at the security check-in at the airport. Remember to put back the tray. They're gonna hold you back and make you do it, right? So. Maybe you guys can add something. You know a bit about this strange country as well.
No, but I agree. But it also relates to what I said earlier. We had problems in Denmark after the financial crisis. We had a huge public sector delivering service to all the people. And how do you keep on continuing to deliver this service with limited amount of money? Then you have to think of new ways to deliver value to the user. And that is something we are struggling with right now.
Yeah, good time so.
But I also think probably there's, it's a Denmark is a very equal society, also in terms of income generation. I think probably the levels are a little different here in Thailand, which makes it easier, for instance, to deliver great services in hotels because it's cheaper than
From your experience, what would you do if you come up with a great design, but there are some technical barriers that cannot be compromises, stuff like that?
Yeah. So, as a designer or an inventor, what you're saying here is if you have like an ambition and intention, and then you there's some barriers, right? Yeah. that is actually, I think, you know, sometimes the art of design is the art of making the right compromises. And it really is, because very often, you know, you hit some kind of limitation. It can be manufacturing cost, technological, you know, limitations, what have you. And this is really, you know, where the good designer shows if he manages to bring it together in a meaningful way. Very often you find that, you know, as a young designer, I cried many nights because, no, the client, he just like, you know, ripped it apart and we can't make this, we can't do that. But then when you look at the final product in the market, you know what? It got better. Because it was kind of like refined, like a, you know, a diamond, you polished it and you took away all the parts you didn't need. And actually, very often ended up being a better solution somehow, I must admit. But I was always trying to bring it together and not like just say, then I'm not going to do it, goodbye. That's not the way design works today. Yeah, you, please, go first. Yeah, you're in the chair. Yeah.
Can you share a positive strategy for Danish people to decorate their room or their house? For example, take a chair as a example.
Yeah.
How do you decide which chair fits you better, or even how do you know if you need one chair or two chairs, or you don't even need a chair, or something like that?
Okay. So that's like a private design project, right? When you furbish your home. IKEA has been really good at, you know, teaching people how to get the most out of their homes. So many people would, I think, go to IKEA somehow just to get inspiration, maybe even buy something, and understand, you know, the relation between size and multifunction and living room, small home office, and so on, how that can be combined. But I think many Danish people, because we spend much of our time inside our houses during wintertime and so on, we've always been pretty focused on creating this space, this environment somehow. You know, making new concepts for kitchens, you know, combined with living rooms and so on. But typically in a family, this would be a collective process, right? You know, husband, wife, kids, everybody has, like, end users has something to say about this process. But I think when it comes to also the images Søren just showed, it's true that in many you know, Danish families and homes, it's a pretty minimalist you know, kind of decoration and so on. And for some of you guys, I think you would say it looks very naked if it's not finished, right? It's so empty. Germans, for example, they like a bit more of like decoration and stuff. So we do that in a very different way. Scandinavia is, I guess, it's a bit to one side because we have this like reductionist approach, right? That we don't want perfect design for us. It's not like adding a lot of things until it's perfect. It's taking things away until we just have, like, you know, the core part left, so to say. But there is a high awareness when it comes to like what kind of home products you buy, and we have more like, you know, non-electronic gadgets. I mean, coming from Japan, wow, there's a gadget for everything, right? Wow, even the washing machine I had, you know, I was trying to use it. It was so complicated. It gave me error 20 all the time. So. You had a question as well?
Okay, my name is Julian, and I thank you for your nice presentation about this topic. And I also share something for you. I like your video that have a smart bike with something that you can ding ding.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I can put this device into my children. Because when my children run away, I can ding ding and try to find it. Okay. And the second part is I also find your Facebook, and I will follow the design. And I can be the face for your smart idea.
That is great.
Okay. Finally, I'm trying to Google the Instagram. I find the design the global have your picture. So I also update your picture into the Instagram and have the design it global. It's okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to send me a link and
Yes.
I'll check it, but I think it's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But you know, any kind of exposure and coverage, it's probably good. So But what do you think, now I'm just asking openly, I mean, what do you think is your biggest challenge can be on a corporate level or like on a daily level working with design? Because as we know, running the company, changing the company, these are two different things somehow. What do you see as the big challenges?
New idea.
Sorry? New ideas?
Yeah. Because I should say, because we work, our life is busy, so it's hard to create the new thing. So in Asia or in Europe or around the world, people have different thinking. So you want to develop a new product for a country, I think it's very hard and have a challenge.
Yeah.
So this is my thinking.
Yeah. So getting ideas that can be turned into products that will become big market success.
I think there are too many ideas and too many things to be done. How can we choose? You said don't make one product 1%, but make 100 products.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to choose these 100 products together and how to make them. There are so many things to do.
Too few ideas and too many options. And I think what you're both saying is actually, I think actually you guys agree because the question is how to get the right ideas to the market, right? And I guess there is some truth to it that you got to start with many ideas and you will kind of distill that into maybe 3 ideas or something. But of course having this idea pipeline that's always a bit like, with overpressure, too many ideas, I think it's always good if you're also good at, setting a strategic direction and helping the different teams and, business units to make the right decisions. Typically, many ideas is not the problem, but if you don't know what you want to do with them, then it becomes complicated because you cannot say yes or no to any of them.
Okay, that's all. Any question? Okay, and thank you, Mikkel, again. Thank you for your sharing. And also, we have prepared some little gifts for you. Yeah,
Okay.
this comes from. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the inspiring lecture. Yes, thank you, Lion. And we have another cup, full and high cup, China cup.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I know someone back home who's going to